Welcome to Cannabiz Conversations. I am the fortunate and lucky host of today's episode, Sean Welsh, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, is one of the funnest episodes that I've been building up to because it's someone that I followed on social media, someone I was introduced to because of this show, because of us doing what we're trying to do here for the community and help elevate the plant to its rightful place in society. This interview today is exciting, and you're going to enjoy it. I am joined by none other, if you don't know who's on the screen with me, than Chef Jordan Wagman. Jordan, how are you, man?
I'm good, brother. Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Is that an homage to Canada, your shirt?
It was purchased in Canada. In Vancouver, in an area, I think it's called Gastown, I want to say. I'm not great with my Canadian politics.
Gastown.
But quickly, the story there is we were walking through a beautiful park. This is 2013, and I had just used Airbnb for the first time in this beautiful Vancouver condo. It was dope. So awesome. Anyhow, we didn't have anything with us. We come from Seattle, and we're like, all right, we're in Canada. Like, should be pretty easy. And I walk up to a cat in a park. This guy had to have had out at least an ounce, just laying out, rolling joints. And I'm like, perfect. Like, this is my guy. I walk up. I'm like, hey, bro, can I get in? He's like, absolutely not. I'm like, what? And he's like, sorry, this is my business. I'm pre-rolling. This isn't what this looks like. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then can I buy from your business? He's like, that's not what it looks like either. I'm like, all right, cool enough. I'm like, where can I go? He's like, go to Gastown, look for an ATM. You'll hear a dude whisper out real quietly what you're looking for. Just stop and pick it up. And I'm like, cool, I'm doing it. Like, I'm totally doing it with my wife, my good buddy. And they're like, we're not doing this. I'm like, yeah, we are. Like, I'm doing this. We're going to go to the ATM. I have directions. I mean, the guy put a pin on a map. I know where I'm going. Right. So Jordan, we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden I can eye it. I can see it happening. I've been around the game a long time. So I just told the two of them, they were flanking me. I'm like, just keep walking. Just go to the end of the road, keep walking in the street, cross the next street. I'll be there. Don't worry about it. Just literally, they walk, I turned. Yep. 50 or 150. I mean, it was seamless. Like, I didn't even stop walking. I just picked it off, I hung it off, and I rolled, dude. And I fucking these two turned around and expected me to be a mile back. I'm like 2 steps behind them. They're like, what happened? Did it not go right? I'm like, done. Like, let's go. Walk around the corner, right, into a spot to roll it up and smoke it. It was mind-blowing to me that I couldn't buy it legally, but somehow I could walk into a store and people were like, or not a store, I guess it was like I don't know, like a smoking lounge. I don't even know where I was, Jordan.
That's amazing. What a great story.
And so I purchased my shirt, and everywhere I go, I wear it. And you are the first one. I wanted to save it for you specifically for this show. It's never been worn on the show before.
Oh, Canada.
Please. I'm sorry. But right. Wait, sorry. You got to do the hat thing, right? I'm never sure, Jordan. When it happens at hockey games, I just take off my hat anyway. So I don't really know.
That's proper etiquette.
All right, man. So the cannabis chef, I mean, the man of all love of cannabis and integration of food. Why don't you tell us your cannabis origin story first? Because I'm going to assume you found it recreationally before you found it medicinally valuable. So I'd like to hear about how you ran into it, and then when did you find out it was medicine?
It's actually an interesting statement because you're absolutely right in that assumption. But I've smoked joints every day of my life since I was 12 years old. That said, I was also diagnosed with psoriasis when I was 12 years old. And this was not a coincidence that, my brother was 3 years older. And so I took a bod, which is you put hash at the end of a cigarette and you put it at the, bottom of a Evian, or whatever, glass bottle, plastic, horrible, right? And then you inhale that. And that was my first introduction as a Canadian boy living in Toronto, was to hash. But the truth is that subsequent to my diagnoses of psoriasis, I'd wake up in the middle of the night itching and bleeding and filled with just, covered head to toe at one point in scales and plaques of psoriasis. And the only way that I could find relief was by smoking a joint. Back then, I was long-haired freaky people, right? I was a long-haired dude. I loved playing guitar. I loved the Grateful Dead. Even at a young age, like I grew into this, and I felt like people looked at me like a degenerate, but the truth is I was solving for a need state the whole time. 9 years ago, I discovered cannabis from a health and wellness perspective, right? So I've always cooked with cannabis. Culinary has obviously been a part of my life for for the better part of 31 years. But only 9 years ago now, I sought the help of a naturopath and removed gluten, dairy, and refined sugar from my diet and began consuming thousands of mgs of different cannabinoids and terpenes. And in 60 days, my psoriasis went away. Like, decades of, I wrote every high school exam in the hospital. I lived a year and a half of my life in a tent at the Dead Sea in Israel. Like every decision I made in my life revolved around my skin, right? Literally. And what I wore every day, the medicine I would put on, when I would put it on. It was a very strategic approach. And then I changed my diet and began consuming cannabis. Now it's not but that's when I discovered it. To be succinct, that's when I discovered cannabis from a health and wellness perspective. So for the last 9 years, I have introduced and changed the entire course of my culinary career. And it gave me a new voice, actually, one that is geared towards an anti-inflammatory diet. Right? Without gluten, without dairy, without refined sugar, without nightshade vegetables, things that are beneficial to our body, that our body will tolerate. And so that's my approach to food. It's my approach to cannabis. I eat cannabis. I smoke cannabis. I love cannabis. But cannabis is, for me, I believe in my heart of hearts, yes, cannabis, we do smoke cannabis for recreational purposes. I believe in my heart of hearts, at the root of our chronic cannabis consumption is something that we're solving for. There's a need state there, an underlying need state.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, look, man, I mean, you talk about hash. My first instinct with it was the same way. At least you had something glass. I had tin foil. We didn't even have the edge of a cigarette. I mean, this is a straight burn to the tin foiler. So I can appreciate that part of it, dude, for sure. I'm with you though. So mine was all health related. I grew up with migraines, wicked blackout while you're driving, end up in an ER, not know how you got their headaches. And it was one of those things that I would always say to people, look, how do I tell these doctors that this is what works? Because they can't hear this. They got me on all these other meds, doing all this other shit, right? And they can't do it. So I'm down in Chicago at a neuro, science lab, basically. They induce a migraine, which is a terrible experience for anyone who's ever been through it, just so they can get the radio waves, see all the businesses, and they do all that. And they're like, look, your head has got this spot on your brain, man, and none of us can explain it. Within 3 hours, man, they told me I had cancer, a tumor. I mean, you can't imagine the shit these people had no idea what they were talking about. And at the end of these 3 hours, they were like, so how do you deal with the pain? I'm like, well, I smoke a joint. Oh, whoa, no. This was 1999, 2000. No, you can't do that. You got to use these meds. Total like $1,100 a month were the medication costs. Granted, I'm a 20-year-old car guy, fortunate enough. Didn't seem that odd to me. I was making money, but didn't matter. The point is, why should I have to do that when I didn't make sense? And so I think of your journey, because what we'll get into here in a while is you have a book coming out about your journey. And I love the name and I can't wait to hop in. But one of the things that I think about when I think about your book is the stuff that you did to go through with the psoriasis. And the same thing I did with migraines. Every decision you make is that I almost moved to the West from where I live in the Midwest because people would convince me dry air was somehow going to make my life better. And I was just like, okay, what the fuck? But Jordan, all we were doing, maybe I'm speaking, and I don't want to speak for you. All I was doing was addressing the symptoms, right? I wasn't addressing the root cause of the issue. The root cause of the issue of the migraines for me was my fucking stress level, was how much pressure I put on myself every single day. And it wasn't, because you're right, I was medicating with cannabis without knowing it because the cannabis automatically released the stress and tension, right? And so, you were here, you're dealing with all the symptoms of everything, but then you found the root cause to be your diet, right? I mean, is that fair to say?
It's gut health. I mean, overall gut health is truly that I won't say that suggest that there's any such thing as a cure-all, but I will say that a lot of autoimmune challenges stem from, what happens internally. And, if we choose cannabis, I look at it as a three-headed monster, right? So you have cannabis, you have a healthy diet, and you have exercise, and there's other factors in there, and of course stress level is a big one. But if you choose one of them that doesn't create, you work out every day and go to McDonald's, I'm sorry, but that's not a recipe for overall health. A sustainable approach to overall health.
Yeah.
But if you choose cannabis combined with a healthy diet, and you exercise a little, you might, but if you combine all three, cannabis combined with other approaches to health and wellness works. Cannabis on its own does not an approach make. So if you think that you can just consume thousands of milligrams of cannabis and not change your diet, refined sugar is the absolute devil and creates tremendous inflammation. So if we want to go and we want to eat all that refined sugar and a bunch of cannabis, I'm sorry, like the net result is almost zero. So don't even bother. It needs to be a combination or a holistic approach to your health and wellness. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I approach my overall health and wellness and my use of cannabis and terpenes in my overall health and wellness.
I mean, we do the same thing in this household. My wife is I call her she's the boss of all things health and wellness. She's the COO of health and wellness in this house. She brings it down. She talks about the diet. I bitch and moan about what I like and don't like. And she's like, I don't really care. My wife is the cook in my home, Jordan. I don't make requests to the cook, Jordan. That's not how it works. So if the cook is making something and she's like, look, this is what it is. This is how we're eating. Then that's what I'm eating. That's how it works. That's the part of it. But she's always thinking about what's best for me and what's best for us. And I like that.
But you saw the pictures in my book. Yeah, right. So that speaks to I took every picture, right? And I don't want to jump ahead, but
sure.
That's a really special project to me. But those pictures in and of themselves, forget about my social media, but those pictures define what cannabis food and beverage can be for now. Wait until the other people are coming into the market, which I can tell you about, which is really incredibly special.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. The pictures to me really tell the story. I told you in the pre-show, I'm not a big reader, but going through your book and consuming it and really, reading about your journey and seeing how you lay it out and seeing the pictures, you talked about as a big time chef, you took your big time dream job in Colorado, if I read this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And let me not guess. Why don't we talk about the amazing, because you have put, I believe in your bio somewhere I read, mental health survivor. And I'm going to assume some of that is the stress that you go through being in the top flight arena like that as a chef. Is that fair to say? Now, I just started watching Bear. All right. So forgive me if I'm off shooting my actual what goes on in the kitchen thing. All right. But
so Bear is the closest version of a kitchen that I've seen yet, okay. I believe anyways. Okay. And a lot of the PTSD that we really do go through and have to, that more people who have to live in it every day now, where I certainly choose not to, that shit's real.
Okay.
That is real.
So was it the same way in your gig? Was it high stress? I mean, you were in I believe it was 4 diamond, right? Accreditation. So I assume all these things come with something.
I struggled with mental health since I was born. I truly believe that the moniker, the mental health survivor, I took that from my brother Ryan, who is a brilliant writer in New York. And Ryan, after our friend Mark took his life, I used to call myself a mental health advocate, and it just, I felt as though when Ryan called himself a mental health survivor, in reference to being a mental health survivor, it really resonated with me, because it meant that I really am on the other side of where I once was. And I, there are people who aren't here with us that have struggled with mental health, that aren't as, that aren't in as great of a place as I feel I am. My brother is, and how fortunate we are to, quite frankly, have one another. And, and the guy who passed away is the happiest guy you'd ever meet, the funniest guy you'd ever meet, truly the nicest person you'd ever meet on the planet. And we knew he struggled. And I feel like I'm a mental health survivor. So was the restaurant business stressful? So what's interesting about that is you cannot separate, in my world, mental health and physical health. You can't. They're one and the same. So because I struggled with physical health my entire life, since I was 12, and mental health since I was, a very young person. I remember seeing a psychiatrist when I was 8 years old, Dr. Teppergain. When I found my physical health through diet, I realized how important it was to my mental health, and that I became physically healthy and mentally healthy very quickly thereafter, very soon after. And so they aren't mutually exclusive. I need them to be completely interrelated. And so when I approach my physical health, listen, I was miserable. I was fucking miserable because I was working all the time. You said that, I chased the sunshine, right? That was my first piece to my health puzzle. So I moved to Florida. I dropped out of university. I moved to Florida. I moved to California. I lived in Israel. I lived in Colorado. And Colorado, for those who've never spent time in Colorado, you might think like snow, snow, snow. The truth is it's sunny like 300 days of the year. It's the greatest place on earth.
Agreed. I loved every day I lived there. I wish every day I still lived there. So
of course. But from my perspective as a chef, it doesn't fucking matter where you are living. When you're cooking in a kitchen, it's hot, it's the same temperature, it's the same sunshine, it's the same rain. There's no difference. It doesn't matter where you live because you're missing the sunshine, especially if you're cooking at a high level, right? So for me, it didn't matter. And you're right, I was only treating the symptom for a long time because I lived in Israel, and Israel's a very special place, like at the Dead Sea. It's like this lowest point on earth, and there were lots of countries would send their citizens in, and with psoriasis and arthritis, and they'd get healed, right? It's a very healing place. The problem is you go home, right? You go home.
Yeah, you can't live there. I mean, you could live there. You could, but
I didn't.
Yeah.
I went home. I went home. That's why I went back for another 6 months. That's my 18 months. So it wasn't a cure-all. To your point, I was just chasing, curing, if you will, the symptoms, not really at getting at the the overall problem.
But not just the stress in the kitchen, because I guarantee, as the individual that I'm reading about you in this book, you got to put a lot on yourself to get to where you are, right? The amount of human stress, right? No one else put it on you. It's you and you alone, because I struggle
You're gonna
with
make
the
me
same thing.
cry you're gonna make me cry in this episode?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we could cry together. I don't give a shit. I'm a guy. If it makes you cry, then that's good.
Listen.
You've done a lot. You should be proud of yourself. You should want to have that. Yeah.
I know at almost 52 years old what drives me, right? And it's very different than when I was 20 years old. And so I wanted to be the best. Like, that's when I was younger. All I cared about was being the best, being known as the best, being thought of as the best, being, recognized as the best, having the most shows. And now at 52 years old, what I want to do is make sure that you, my new friend, who has this amazing cannabis podcast, that you're successful. I don't care. It's not about me, because if you're successful in getting our message out there, then that bodes well for all of us.
Right.
And we're much better together. And so that's where I am in my world, is simply just trying to prop you up and the others in the space and all in culinary and whatnot, because it's not that my time has passed. That's not it at all. I'm more of an educator and a mentor now. That's the way I want to be thought of.
And so, all right, let me ask you then. You said you're 52. I'm 43. I feel like the last 5 years of my life, I've become this like softer version of myself, someone who's willing to see things differently, be open to other ideas. not feeling the pressure of having to be number one, sort of not settling. I don't settle for anything, but I'm also not trying to kill myself to be the most highly rated or have the biggest company. I had a choice. I'm fortunate to have really successful family members, and two of them are uncles, and they were both big time CEOs. And right when I started my company, it sort of took off. And I got a little nervous because I didn't know what to do next. And I didn't know if I want to get big and get office space and people and all this other shit. So I sat with both of them at Thanksgiving. I said, look, here's where I'm at. And they said, you got basically two choices. You can go left, have $1 million company, enjoy every single day of your life, run it, but you're going to run it every day. You're going to be responsible for it. You're going to have a lot of fun. You can go right, maybe make a $5 to $10 million company, likely hate your life, hope you sell it, and never see your wife, but you're going to make a ton of money. So I'm going to go left. I'm going to go left because I already went right. When I was selling cars, the whole point of selling cars was to own a dealership. That was my eyes guide from the age of 17 till I hit 30 and realized it was not going to happen the way I thought. That was my goal. That was what I wanted to do with my entire life. And I wasn't going to stop for it. And it almost killed me. And it would have definitely ended my marriage. So let me go bringing that in, because I know for a fact, just reading the book you've read, your partner in crime is a big part of why Jordan is who Jordan is today. Is that a fair assumption of your relationship with your wife and what it takes for Jordan to be who he is?
So that is an interesting question. There is no question that the answer to that is yes. She is my ex-wife.
I'm sorry, I did not read that in the book. I apologize.
No, it's not in the book. It's the last page in the book, literally.
See,
To
be fair, Jordan sent it to me last night. I don't want to absolve myself of anything. All right, I'm not a fast reader. All right, I got as far as I could.
It's the last page in the book. And the truth is that we were together for 31 years, right? Since we only split up about a year ago. And there's I don't have a negative thing to say. Everything that you said in your question is 100% true. Yes, she was a huge part of my growth and my education. And being a partner in raising amazing kids. Like, our kids are 20 and almost 17, and it's amazing how well adjusted they are, and especially subsequent to our separation. It's just really credit, I think, to all four of us, quite frankly, us as parents, and the ability to co-parent, and our children for being just emotionally intelligent and understanding that parents sometimes just need to be happy, regardless of, if you ever watch Mrs. Doubtfire, the end of Mrs. Doubtfire says it all, right? Every family is different. Like, there's two mommies, two daddies, three, like, we're all different. But my kids are older and thankfully very emotionally intelligent and understand, and it's taking some adjustment. But I've also fallen in love with someone else. I'm incredibly happy and moved on. And that part of my life, and this is why, I am so grateful to Tamar, is, both of us have this ability to turn the next page and just move on. And so, really without impacting our children negatively, because they're at the core of that, right?
That's a huge one, right? Because I don't have kids. My wife and I have been together 20 years. I don't have kids. When I met her, she told me she couldn't have kids. I asked her if she wanted to get married because I never viewed myself as parent material. And I didn't know that there was women that couldn't have kids or didn't want to have kids. So when I met her, I was pretty, she was like, most guys, they want to run away. I'm like, definitely not running away from this one. But, shit happens, right? Life's changed. People go through things, life-changing, altering events. And obviously, Jordan, you talk about going through a divorce, being a mental health survivor, going through that, if you don't mind. I mean, is that something that was it difficult when it happened? Did it bring back any of that stuff that you'd already kind of been through and survived kind of through your mental health journey and, that part, or was it something you both kind of realized and it was really as amicable as one could hope for?
Well, the truth is that for the last 5 or 6 years, we were, and maybe it's more on and off, but quite a bit on, doing a lot of marriage therapy. And you know, we together knew that this was going to better the lives of everyone involved. And the ability for us to be able to be in therapy and to be very cognizant of an approach. And my personal, and I will only speak for me, is my approach was always, I want to be able to tell my children, which, you know, they're very mature kids, right? I want to be able to tell them that we've done everything that we can to stay together and be a family, and we are able to walk away with our heads held high, knowing that we've done everything and that, you know, that we can do for them and for all of us. And now it's time for us to move on, and quite frankly, after 31 years being together, we are young enough to be able to enjoy the back nine and be healthy and you know, and take advantage of it.
I mean, 30 years of anything is a long time.
It is.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to realizing that. You bring up the word emotional intelligence, and I think that is one of the biggest factors of something that I've learned about myself over the last probably 5 or 7 years, is that I do have that. And I am someone who, if I allow myself to go there, can go there. But it's difficult because when you're in a business of stress, the emotional intelligence really doesn't really come up left to right for me, because the head is down on the prize. I wasn't really focused on the exterior of other people, what it might have been doing to them, because I wanted to succeed, and I knew that I would bring people with me on my success, and that always made me happy and happy to have it. But that was, it was almost like buying success or buying friendship, which is a little annoying looking at it retrospectively. But
I was so angry, dude. I was so angry. I epitomized being an angry chef. You know, the, it wasn't fun. You know, the world thankfully has evolved quite a bit since then. And it's not to say there's not, you know, incredible abuse going on in hospitality, but of course there is. But the world is getting better. I do believe that. And I have matured tremendously and appreciate that, you know, you know, you attract more bees with honey, right? And so I love and I'm really a big fan of, you know, of positively impacting people and not being known as, I don't want people to be scared. I don't want people to not look forward to coming in and working with me. I pay people more. I treat them better. My goal is to just be the best in that regard. I want to be the best for people. I've never said that before, but it's funny because that's true. Like, if I'm the best at anything, I just want to be the best for you. I want to be the best for people, and including me, quite frankly.
yeah, but I think if you're the best for people, I think that brings you the satisfaction in your own life, right? That is,
And the reverse is true. If I'm the best to me, I can be the best to you and others.
okay. But all right, but let's take this back a step, because I think that, I don't want to say people pleasing, but that's where originally the thought process for me originates. That's not what you're saying. You're saying
Not
being
at all.
there to make people their best, which I appreciate. But
Yeah.
Jordan, what happens when it's not reciprocated? What happens when Jordan puts in and
That's
Jordan
more
doesn't
often
get
than
out?
not. No, that's more often than not.
Then we just move on?
That's eight. No.
No?
That's
Okay.
80-20. That's 80-20. So let's determine, what are we trying to get out of this, right? So philanthropy is at the top of my food chain, right? I just got a call from Sick Children's Hospital. I work with PAC, the Pediatric Advanced Care Team. These are kids who, you know, thankfully, some have just been, you know, by the grace of whomever is up there, you know, whomever you pray to, by the grace of that, these people have been saved. But I've lost a couple children in the program, and these children, some of them have really life-threatening illnesses. And I work with these kids because they want to, you know, they want the type of experience, they want to cook. That's impact. What do I get from that? What's the goal there, right? Because it's all about goals and expectations. My goal in that's it. I want to fill my heart. I want to impact those children so that they and their family don't have to cook for an entire evening. I just make sure that they've got leftovers. I give them a five-star restaurant experience, whatever you want to create, like, multi-course around all of their dietary restrictions, all their likes and dislikes. That's what I love to do because that fills my cup and I know what I can expect. What has that done for me? So let's talk about that transparently. Well, Thick Children's Hospital is one of the best hospitals for children on the planet. On the planet. The fact that the organization who runs the company, the foundation, knows who Chef Jordan Wagman is, does a lot for my career, quite frankly. They, and for cannabis, they were part of the Kind Gala last Christmas in 2020. What's this? 2022, right? In December 2022. They were the recipient of this silent auction at this Kind Gala, which was the first of its kind cannabis gala, where we were doing really special things. We took cannabis packaging and we plated in cannabis packaging all the appetizers. It was really sexy. Point being, why did they get involved with a cannabis brand? Because of me, because they trusted me. That's great for my career. That's great for cannabis. That's great for Sick Children's. They were the recipient of some monies, but that fills my cup. There's many different reasons I get into situations or, into environments where I'm building out content or, in-person content or an event or some of it's for money. Some of it is because I believe in you, in what you're doing. And just like when I was, most people don't know this about my career, but in 2003, I didn't leave Culinary. I thought I would. I left Colorado and joined the Accurate group of companies. My mother's brother, their company, and great experience. Was there for 20 years, was the director of sales for 12 of those years. It taught me an incredible business acumen that I never, ever, ever had. So everything that people see in my culinary career for the last 20 plus years had been concurrent to Accurate, and I left 3 years ago because cannabis just became so overwhelming. But the truth is that now it's at the forefront of everything that I'm doing, is looking for all those dominoes and how they line up and how they fall into one another, so that, not do as little as work as possible, but be really smart with the time that you have, because it's the only currency you have.
That's it. Time is it. That's all I talk about. Monetize your time. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what that means to you. Monetizing your time doesn't have to mean money. Could mean philanthropy. Could mean donation. I don't give a shit. It means make sure you make the most of it, and that that's where your value lies. That so when someone says do this, like I find that artists, my sister's an artist. I have a couple of friends who are artists. Their hardest thing in life is to figure out their value. It is they will beat themselves up about, how much should this painting be? How much should this photography be? How much time did it take you? It took me 4 minutes. If someone paid you $130, would you be cool for 4 minutes? I would be. Cool. Put $130 on that if it seems fair to the market. I mean, you just have to have a way to really balance it. This is interesting though, Jordan. So 12 years you were not a chef after 03, after the dream job. Did I hear that right?
No. So I thought that I was going to hang up my whites, when in fact I didn't hang up my whites. I opened up a restaurant 6 months later in Toronto when I came back to Toronto, but concurrently I was at the Accurate group of companies for 20 years.
Got it.
The last 12 years, correct. So everything that people see and all the sexy stuff that you see for the last 20 plus years was all concurrent to running a huge company and being a part of this, this business, which was a great experience. But it's not nearly as sexy as, as what people see in terms of, the food and whatnot, right?
Well, it just kind of reminds me of the story you tell in the book, right? Where everyone thought that they went to high school with you for 4 years, right?
And it's so true, bro.
I get it.
And that's mental health. that's because of mental health.
Right. Well,
Right.
that's
So
because of where you went on to, right? You left the high school, you went to something that was more, direct into your scope of life. And I
that's
believe your words
exactly
were
right.
changed your life. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, it did. And so you've done your due diligence. I mean, you say that you're not a reader, but you've obviously hit on the
Well,
key
I mean,
points. Yeah. I mean, you've
I've
obviously
taken the
done your
last 12
homework.
hours to read. I don't know how far I'm supposed to get, but that's what I've been doing.
Listen, the truth is that when I was 16 years old, I was really struggling. I had seen when I was 13, my grandfather passed away in June. In July, Jonathan Miller was killed in a boating accident at summer camp, and watched the whole thing happen. And it was incredibly impactful for me, and still, obviously still consider that today. Sorry,
But
where was
during
I going?
that, there was also, you also talk about how summer camp changed your life in another
Well,
way, right? It
well,
wasn't just about it was important.
summer camp, and that leads me to where I live today, right? I've moved up north as of June, and bought a place on a lake because my happiest place on the earth is the Canadian Shield, is rock, is lake, is Northern Ontario. That's my happy place, right? But I left mainstream school when I was 16 years old because I pulled a knife on my mom. Now, let me be very clear about this. I was upstairs, she was downstairs. So when I say I pulled the knife on my mom, I was into Rambo. I was really into canoe tripping, but I had a very bad temper. And my mom was downstairs, and I think I said something like, "Don't make me," or something like just really aggressive and foolish and scary, and all of these words that we can use to describe. And these are not stories that I tell with shame associated with all. I'm very proud of the
No,
human
no,
that
no.
I'm
You
becoming,
have to
and what
balance
I
it, right? There's no shame in being
well,
honest
no,
about
it's
who you are as a person. So no.
well, it's and listen, this was why the Diamond Center changed my life, because
Right.
my parents, the psychiatrist, and everyone that was involved, especially in this school, um, they all sort of decided that the best plan of action would be for me to leave mainstream school and attend the school, which had 30 children in it. I was the oldest at 16 years old. It was from kids from, probably grade 6 and 7 all the way up to, to my age at 16 years old. And you age out the year after anyways. And it's for kids that can't make it in the mainstream school system for multiple reasons: emotional, social, behavioral issues. I mean, it's just that simple. And they really prioritize social skills and learning how to navigate in the world more so than academia. And the academics certainly, took the back seat. And it was great. I learned a ton. It put a ton of tools in my toolbox. And quite frankly, when I chose to leave because I was given the opportunity to go to camp in May at a place called, maintenance camp, which is setting the camp up for all the campers and staff to arrive in June. And it was my happy place. There was no place I loved more. And the people that were going happened to be previous counselors of mine, and I had a special relationship with them. And so I did, and I left against everyone's suggestion, recommendation. It was very clear: if you do this, it will jeopardize the rest of your existence. And I don't I wish that I could sugarcoat it. I wish that I was exaggerating, but that was really the takeaway, for me. At times I think that, the message was, you can do anything that you want, kid, but the truth is that I don't believe that was the messaging the more that I think about it. I really believe that it was, this is scary. I think that you should really stay here and figure out your next steps strategically next year. And I left, and it was the greatest moment in my life, because it taught me very quickly to respect my decisions, to honor my decisions, follow through on my decisions, and know what's best for me. And every book that I wrote and will continue to write, they get the first copy. I put it on the stoop of the school, and it still exists. And today I go back in, I'm doing another charity event in June, but I go back in, and my old classroom is now the kitchen that I had donated, and it's a very special place.
That's awesome, man. That is so great to hear, because I think people see people in your position and they think, he just woke up. He's a chef. Look at him. He's great. And I think that a lot
Yeah.
of people fail to understand the journey it takes for us as human beings to get where we are, right? And, obviously it sounds like dad's nickname for you there was pretty well right on then, right? With PETA, I have that
PETA.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, good call.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but you admit to it, right? You take accountability for it, and I think that that's the takeaway for me, is that you're willing to say, look, that's who I was, not who I am, and it's not who I want to be moving forward. And I think finding a happy place, man, I gotta tell you,
It's not easy.
it's
It's
not
not
easy. It's
easy.
not
I
easy, and
think
it's fleeting. God damn it, it's fleeting because when I was in Colorado, yeah, I worked 15 hours a day at a dealership, come home, but I came home to a garden of 100 plants in different stages, and I just spent hours in the quiet, looking at the color of terpenes, or just taking a stroll in the other room, seeing where the babies were at. Whatever it was so cool, and it allowed me to just get away from everything else. And granted, I love the fact my house in Colorado oversaw 180 degrees of the mountains just right off my master bedroom, and I could just lay in my bed and look at mountains all night. All fun and well, but the ability to connect with the plant, the ability to be there, to watch it make something. My wife and I, we live now in Prohibition Island in Wisconsin, so we can't do any of that. I have so many house plants. I think I could start naming them for God's sakes. But the point is the connection to the environment, right? And to find your happy place isn't easy. I thought that was my happy place because I lived in Colorado, had a beautiful house, had beautiful views, gated community, blah, 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 blah. Turns out, not happy. Not truly happy at 60, 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, stressing myself out, smoking a pack of cigs a day, drinking a case of Newcastle. It never penciled for why this was supposed to be great, except for all the frivolous bullshit that I could give to friends or have for myself. Jordan, when you're 52, you said, when did you realize that money wasn't going to be what motivated Jordan to get out of bed and do what he was doing? Not even in your case, I guess, because money, as you put in your book, hasn't always been the easiest being a chef. But how about we say
no.
title or power, not power, but notoriety? Like, when did you start to kind of shift away?
But money was a driver for me, and that's why joining, going in, and my father, when they were in screws, nuts, and bolts, and he prides himself on being a real comedian, said, you done screwing around yet, when I was in Colorado, right? And coming home was a great opportunity. Now, they started me on the lowest of low ranks, and just like I would with anyone, you start as a dishwasher, you learn, the executive chef is the guy sweeping the floor, regardless of what you see or do or hear. More often than not, the guy at the top is sweeping the floor. And sorry, where was I going with that?
No, we were talking about your ability, like, as far as with your job, chasing the money, or trying to make money the motivator.
Yeah, for me right now, and it has been for some time, it's, we had a dual income. We never worried about money, and we really did what we wanted to do. And the pandemic taught me a lot, and it really did. It taught me just the importance of quality of life. And so, when you realize that I do fine, my mortgage is going to be paid, my kids are looked after, everybody's good. Like, in the grand scheme, it's just first world shit. And it's like, I live on a lake now in my dream home in Northern Ontario. And it's like, I also get to come down to Toronto, in the heart of Toronto, with my girlfriend, and like, it just, life is good. It just, you realize very quickly what's important. When people start to die, it's very clear what's important. And the funny thing is, a lot of the time, and for years and years and years, I'd go to a funeral, and you'd have perspective, and it'd be fleeting, for a couple hours, and then you go back to the rat race, and you get a call that pisses you off, or you're in the car on the way home from the funeral, someone cuts you off, and boom, you go off, and you got road rage, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
no, dude. I tell all my buddies the same joke about my dad. My dad is a hardcore church on Sunday guy, but cut him off in the church parking lot, and he will fuck you, motherfuck you, until you drive home.
See what I'm saying?
I've never been able to put the two together. I'm not a church goer. My dad, that's his bit. but like
Yeah.
I don't do it. But I could never reconcile those two moments like in my
I
own
know.
mind, because I was like,
I know.
you know, I don't get it. I always joke my grandmother's the only true Catholic I ever met. She did the rosary every morning, every night, and everything she did in her life was like she was trying to make the book happy. She was trying to make someone that wasn't there proud of her existence. Even when no one was looking, this woman was doing the right thing. So I think it is about those moments
We're
of
perfectly imperfect, all of us, perfectly imperfect. And so for me, even the other day, driving home on Saturday, an event on Saturday night in Toronto, I had a fucking, Jeep filled with equipment and food and whatnot, and it was raining, and it turned out to be twice. This small little car cut me off twice, and like once, okay, twice, I'm pulling up beside you, and I'm just going to give you a look or something. And it turned out to be two girls that were a year older than my daughter, and it was like, I just looked forward and moved on about my day, and then made it a moment that I wanted to share with my daughter, to not be a knucklehead when you drive, and just, and give her those opportunities just to learn from my mistake. But I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be, and I say that, I tell that story because I'm a knucklehead, because I pulled up beside him, and it could have been somebody with a gun. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what's the point? To what end
Canada,
am I doing that?
Even in Canada, you guys still have to worry about road rage. It might be different, but it's still a problem. Jordan, you talk about the pandemic teaching you a lesson, or at least lessons, or seeing it change your lens. I don't think enough people talk about that. I don't think anyone really. I think everyone still looks at it as this. Oh, I locked in my house. All these complaints about the opportunity to reset your fucking life. If you didn't take advantage of those 2 years, that shit's on you, man. I'm not gonna sit around and complain. I didn't like it either, because I've been running my own business for over 5 years when that happened, and I use Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to go out and do shit I want to do when everyone else is at work. But when the pandemic happened, everybody joined me outside, and I didn't appreciate that, because my hiking trails were full. They were dirty. People don't have the same respect for nature that they should. That pisses me off. But in general, the pandemic was an unbelievable learning experience for those paying attention.
And it felt like it was really a 3-year sort of thing here, and Canada, Toronto was just insane. But whatever it was, I was home with somebody who's got an autoimmune disease, and somebody who just, like, I was scared, and I was probably just, with propaganda, just for whatever the reasons, I felt I didn't know enough. We all did not have the same information then as we do today, period, the end. And so I will make all of my decisions moving forward based on what I know and know to be true, or think to be true. The pandemic is something that everything changed for me. Quite honestly, everything changed for me in the pandemic. And, it was an opportunity to connect as a family. We'd play board games and card games for the first time in many years since we were at the cottage. We were able to connect.
Technology is always fun, but it allows us to meet with people in other parts of the world. So we are patient for it. Jordan, as we're wrapping up here, we talked about COVID being a wonderful, retrospectively good thing for all of us if we were paying attention now. And as you said, knowing what we know now, we should look back and look forward with that in mind. It's the last part of the show. With that, it is customary that we turn it over to you, Jordan. We ask you, what do you want people to be talking about? What do you want people to know about in the industry? I don't care if it's just personality, just humans. What is it important to Jordan in this moment?
Nothing's changed. I stand on my soapbox and talk about this often. But if we choose to have a plant and say that we're selling a plant as medicine, then we should probably have products that are reminiscent of medicine. Refined sugar only causes further inflammation and further need states. It does not solve for need states. It just causes further need states. And when you combine refined sugar with cannabis, I would argue that the cannabis is less bioavailable than the refined sugar itself. So the body wants to consume the refined sugar before it consumes the cannabis. And, so from that respect, I believe that the way in which we create CPG is flawed. The way in which it's conceptualized might be okay, but why the masses aren't employing culinarians and mixologists, I'll never understand. Some are, obviously, but in a lot of instances, I believe that people who create food and beverage for people on the regular, their palates are very diverse, and not everyone is talented, not everyone can do that. But I do believe, and I'm not even speaking to me, there are many people in the space in Toronto, in California, abroad, but all over, who can provide a better checks and balances on what is considered to the masses as good, quote unquote. And, obviously it's subjective, but there's product in the market that shouldn't be there. It just isn't good. It just doesn't taste good. And so I believe that the way in which we create CPG, there should be, if you think about it as a relay race, the first person to touch that and create that initial recipe is a culinary and a mixologist, who then passes the baton to a food scientist, who can then scale and work on emulsions and so forth. But the first person should be someone that actually uses taste and as a barometer to how something is executed. And then they should be a part of the final process. So I believe it's a little bit flawed.
Well, I got to tell you, my wife and I we've just started talking about this. I've never liked eating my cannabis ever. I've never been a brownie guy. I just, the metabolizing, the waiting. I'm a very instant gratification cat. So I'm looking for what I'm looking for when I like it. It's why I've gotten involved in other drugs that I'm glad I don't use anymore. So at the end of the day, this one here makes sense to me. We just started getting into the edible world. And the first thing we said about the gummies was A, what's with all the sugar? B, why does this taste like shit? What is the point of this? Why would I want to enjoy it? This isn't something I enjoy. And three, how did a chef come up with this? So in my research in this space, I think I told you in the pre-show, I call myself a last mile funder. I help people trying to get their business out of the gate, and I do a lot in cannabis, and I get approached by a lot of packing spots. And so one of the spots is a new one. They're like, yeah, we got these new gummies, try them out, test them out, whatever. So I asked Jordan, I said, cool, what chef came up with this? Like, oh, no, we just got a recipe from so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like, so you're going to give me food that you don't know the shit about, and you're going to just produce it? He's like, well, yeah, we had the recipe. I'm like, nah, that doesn't work for me. Like, it's not a good enough reason, Jordan. So you run into this, the way you talked about it, is that the way it should go, or is that the way it's not going at all?
It doesn't go that way as a rule, that's the exception to the rule. That's not the rule. But I do think it's important to cite something. Cannabis chef versus chef. Okay. And I'm fortunate that now I've become an adjunct professor at 2 colleges in the US. I was in New Orleans at the American Culinary Federation doing a culinary and cannabis demo this summer, where I taught a room full of, and did a demo for a room full of educators in the US. And I said to them, put up your hand if you're a cilantro chef. Do you know how many people put up their hand? Not one.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, who would call themselves that? But yeah, okay.
I said, put up your hand if you're a lentil chef. Not one person put up their hand. I said, I'm not a cannabis chef. I have been cooking for 30 plus years. Cannabis doesn't define me. Cannabis is another great ingredient that I use. There are those people out there, and there are people who are diminishing the word chef. By calling yourself a cannabis chef and you haven't run a restaurant, you haven't been cooking for people for a long enough period of time, why can't you be a cook? Why can't you be a home cook? Why do you have to use the word chef? You might have been doing something else and have a different career a week ago, 3 weeks ago, or 3 years ago. But pay your dues. Don't diminish and devalue what the word chef means. So to me, I am not a cannabis chef. I am a chef who cooks with cannabis.
Good. I like that. That's a much better distinction as far as I'm concerned. And again, this was, I mean, we talked about this. I just missed you in my Colorado journey when you were there, but I was there for medicinal legalization, which brought on a restaurant at the time. You know, it was a spot where you could go and get it. And we went there and it was just fucking terrible. Okay. I don't know what else to say. I know everyone wanted me to be positive. Everyone wanted to be excited. This would have been 2005, bro. Okay. Okay, it was ahead of its time. I can appreciate that, but immediately I'm turned off because I'm like, this was gross. Like,
Then that's the problem. It's the turning off problem. That's inevitably so. So be clear. If the food sucks, what's the point? Let's be clear.
And it goes for anything. It's not just cannabis in it, bro.
Course,
food sucks anywhere. I'm never going back.
Yeah. Of course. So it's infused with cannabis. Awesome. How many times are you going back? You've already answered the question. You're not. So that's why, when we talk about curriculum for culinary and cannabis, and I'm very excited to be at the forefront of that. But when we talk about it, it's got to be like my experiences, food first. And mine are not gummies, cookies, and brownies. Every piece of food that you see, most of that can be infused, if not all of it, from tomato sauce to fruit leather to applesauce. It doesn't matter. It can all be infused. It's how to properly do that. And so that's that's where this comes back to is, yes, we can teach you how to cook or how to infuse, but we must teach you how to cook. We must educate you on how to make good food so that your infusions will actually be well received.
And so perfect segue, like we know what we're doing on this show today, right into what I think is the most important part of our discussion, which is your upcoming book here, going to be released in Q1. I was fortunate you sent me an advanced copy. I am forever grateful for that. The name of the book is Will, and it is about your journey. But what I've liked about it is that first of all, you give the math equation for dosage, which I think is very, very cool. You make very clear, not a doctor, not a scientist, a chef who uses cannabis in the way that you do. And I love that. You're very forward about it. When you are talking about what's great is all of the recipes are recipes. And at the very bottom of every recipe, it says, if cannabis, then this, right? It's not like, let's make cannabis brownies. And that's not what this is. It's let's make a brownie. If you want to add cannabis, do that. Here's how you would do that. Here's what would make sense. So
my brownies.
Yeah, dude, for me, it's a bigger deal because as a not chef, as someone who I'm the meat guy in my house, wife wants me to turn on a grill, make a steak. I'm all right with that. I've got a thermometer. I know how to add. I get it. So I'm cool. But at the end of the day, I'm not a chef, but I do consume cannabis. I do have access to it. And to think about putting it with my food in a way that doesn't taste like shit really does excite me very much. So tell me, what was the genesis of this book? Obviously, I see the journey part, but was it about trying to get this message of just because you put cannabis in your food doesn't make it taste good, make sure you make it taste good first?
So there's a couple parts to this. So, I believe the future of cannabis is food and beverage. That's what I believe. I believe that as we have new consumers of cannabis coming into the space, fewer of them will consume through combustible means, through vapes, through smoking, right? Fewer of them. Because of that, I want to educate people on what cannabis food and beverage can be. Will is an aggregate of the last 6 years, 7 years, I guess 9 years of my life, really. And it's this evolution to finding my health through food, where cannabis is just another great ingredient that I use, right? Like cannabis is food to me. But what's really special about Will, and the name Will was given to me by my friend Lisa Borden. What's really special about it is it's all my copy. It's every story is mine. So a year of my life, I wrote a blog, and it was a very cathartic exercise. I released it every week with a recipe, and it followed, I talked about just from my mental health, my psoriasis, my diet, and so on and so forth, and different people that are important to me. And so obviously I've updated some of those stories to reflect, cannabis and where we are and the pandemic and so on and so forth. But it's really followed the last many, years of my life. So it's very autobiographical. So the stories, the copy is all mine. Obviously, all the recipes are all mine, and the photography is all mine, with the exception of the cover is written by Andrew Hort, and it's designed by my niece Lee Radovitsky. The whole thing is really created by me. So I'm really excited about it because it's raw. Like, I know it's not perfect, but when I get it into people's hands, it's going to be perfect enough for me, and it's going to resonate with people because, and I believe this, people look at me, or they look at you, or they look at others, and they want to talk about success. And you know what the truth is? A lot of people cannot resonate with success. That's why I'm as raw as I can be, because the truth is that I still struggle with mental health. I struggle less today. I have better tools in my toolbox today. But you resonate, the listener resonates more with the struggles that I've had than the successes that I have had. And that's what this book is. It's talking about all of it, and how successes or struggles are successes, and the opportunity to learn is a success, and taking that information and really curating something in your life that is better for you, and choosing a better path for you. It's, it becomes an addiction for me, right? Being healthy has become the greatest addiction for me.
Yeah, I talk about it all the time. I'm an addict of everything. I don't care what it is. It does not matter. If I like it, I'm into it, and I get way into it. And I've got to be able to manage those addictions. I come from an addictive background. My father's been sober 30 plus years. That's, that was his thing. I tried it when I met my wife, then girlfriend, because I got blackout drunk one night. She'd never seen that before. She's like, we're never doing this again. So if you're going to drink, you can do that on your own. If you don't want to drink, you can be with me. And I'm like, okay. So I just quit drinking cold turkey, whatever, 90 days in. I was like, all right, cool. So I get this. I get how to control things. I won't be that asshole anymore, I promise. But I do like the taste of a good beer. That was my problem. Like, I don't drink to get drunk. Good beer ends up going down. I like it. I'm drunk. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to go back drinking, I think. And he said, for what? And I said, well, have a couple beers, get a little buzz. And Jordan, he stared me dead in the eyes. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I said, I don't understand. He said, son, if you're going to buy a 30-pack, you drink a 30-pack, you get drunk, go to bed, you do it over again. I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. I can have 2 beers and I can go to bed. Like, I'm cool with that. He's like, if you can do it, then do it. He goes, but that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why you would do that. And I said, well, maybe that's why you can't go anywhere near the stuff. And maybe I can find a balance. And I'm 20 years net of that discussion. And I've never had a situation like that ever again, because I decided that if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. Right. I quit smoking cigarettes. Right. I've only done it once, Jordan. I haven't quit 10 times. I quit once, because I knew that was it for me. I knew that's what I wanted to do. That was the direction. But the health, the addiction to health, the addiction to wellness, I got a full gym on the other side of this video camera. I mean, it is a raging addiction. My wife is a personal trainer by trade. It is something I'm surrounded by. But my struggle has always been food. And that's why I'm excited to really get into the book, work with the wife, bring us together in the kitchen. I think she's already annoyed at me saying, well, this is what Jordan does. Well, this is how Jordan does this. That's how Jordan cleans his vegetables, and she's like, get the fuck away from me. You know what I mean? Like, give me some space. But Jordan, with this book, with everything you've put into it, what makes it successful, Jordan? People ask me all the time to write a book. I don't see any reason, because I don't get it. But to you, what makes this a success, or what makes this book worth?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. And it's funny. I will respond by telling you a quick story. I love doing cooking classes, are obviously part of the offerings, and so I would do kids cooking classes, and there was a friend of ours who had a takeaway from the cooking class, and it is that before you wash your hands, you get your cutting board in place, but before you start doing anything else, you put something underneath the cutting board, a wet paper towel, a sticky, whatever it is, to prevent that cutting board from moving, right? So we don't, what I call, chase the cutting board across the surface, because it's unsafe. And so it wasn't a cooking takeaway, but she took away that tip to her kitchen and probably applies it, and will forevermore. And we'll pass that along. What do I hope, and what makes this a success? That people resonate with something. that they take something away, whether it's a kid going to university and the cherry tomato sauce, which has 2 ingredients, cherry tomatoes and olive oil, which I'm not the guy who's going to say it's the best ever. I will tell you, for 2 ingredients, the application, the way that it's created, it is the greatest sauce that I create. And I use it in every single dinner that I create. So if you are going to college, take this 2 ingredient tomato sauce and make it. If you want to resonate with the stories about mental health or psoriasis, or take something away, then it's a huge success for me. The other part of it is contact me. That would be a huge success for me, is reach out to me like so many people do, because they see that I am, this poster boy for psoriasis, this poster boy for mental health. I'm here to support.
Dude, I love that. I love the way, again, the idea that I say it all the time with my podcast at Automotive. If it helps one person, and someone one day came on, they're like, you're so cliche, that's so bullshit. I'm like, that's fine. I get it. I understand that's how you feel. But honestly, at this point in my life, if it does help one person a week with my show that might get a couple thousand views, whatever, I don't care. Although my nephews don't see the reason, right? They're like, Uncle Sean, you don't have 1 million views on YouTube. Why do you wake up? Like, why do you bother? It's like, well, because it's not about 1 million views, it's not about being viral. It's about being part of a community. It's about growing something, right? And Jordan, what you've done with this book is that already for me, right? And I mean, to me, it's something that I look forward to getting more involved with. And I would be shocked anyone who reads it couldn't find a part of the story that resonates. Like I said, whether it's you dealing with that stuff as far as, what happened to you at summer camp, going through the loss of a friend visually, all of these things, or going to a different high school, being in this environment. But Jordan, you did it in a way where no one noticed. That was interesting.
No, they didn't.
Because of how you connect with human beings. Let that be the case of everyone watching. The reason it happened to him isn't because he was the richest kid at school. It wasn't because he gave the biggest parties. It's because he connected with people on a level that was beyond the surface. And as people, we could all do a better job of connecting beyond the surface.
No one's ever said that to me before, and that's an interesting take, and that's a very interesting take. I like that one a lot. It's very true, and it's so interesting that so many people didn't realize I didn't graduate from Thornley, and I had been gone for a couple of years, and they all think we graduated together.
Like, go check your photos. I'm not in it. Okay. Thanks.
Right. I'm not there. I might have been to graduation.
As we wrap it up, you've been more than gracious with your time. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to leave us with? And if not, then why don't you tell people where they'll be able to find the book, where they can find Jordan, where can they connect with Jordan right now?
So a couple things. First of all, if you're interested in the greatest cannabis experience, I travel the world offering, 8 to 10 course experiences that are filled with different cannabinoids and terpenes. The goal is not to get you high, but to educate you on truly what the future of cannabis food and beverage is. That's what I love to do. That's my playground. That's my sandbox. If you're interested, please reach out. You can reach me everywhere at Chef Jordan Wagman. I'm very proud to announce that, through the pandemic, one of the greatest outcomes was In the Weeds. In the Weeds, I have 50 plus episodes in the can, and it's, thankfully been nominated, even after I didn't record an episode for a year, as a very recognizable cannabis podcast. We are coming back in January, and I'm doing a collab with Falling Leaves starting in 2024 throughout the United States. Michael Webster and I are doing a ton of business and amazing activations together, so that watch out for the press release coming on that. But I'm really stoked, and I'm, as I said, like I'm starting to teach for, Clark College and for Kendall College, and so really exciting. And if you need anything, if a listener, if somebody needs anything from me, and the most trivial thing, these people posted something today on LinkedIn and happened to mention me. And of course I'm going to respond. And they were so gracious in their compliments to me. And now I will absolutely look for ways to cook with them. If you need something from me, if I can bring value to your life in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. I return all DMs.
I've got to get my passport updated, but I want to come up for one of these mystery location pieces I saw on your feed. I think it was back in the fall, potentially, where you're putting on a dinner with a mystery location. I just dig that kind of thing. I like how it sort of, runs this prohibition line of life and has a lot of fun with it. I think that's very cool, man. Honestly, if I get a chance to attend any of these events in the future, or I find out where you're going to be, or I can put you and Dustin in the same room, I'm going to definitely do it. I definitely look forward to it, man. You are a tremendous person. And I've only known you from afar, but I've been able to spend the last hour with you, and I could spend the next 5 hours with you doing the same thing. So thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. All right, everyone. As always, we appreciate you taking your time. But remember, the goal of this show is to raise this plant to its rightful place in society. It is our duty as a show, yours as a consumer, yours as a watcher, to do your best to put this plant where it belongs. Go out, make that your message. Thank you all for joining us. Have yourselves a great week.